about 22nd century science.
So this is a quick recap on the story so far, given in a 22nd century science, where we say astrology is not what you think it is. So episode 1, or episode 0 rather, let's start episode 0. That was your primer. So that was where you learned some of the phrases that we use and some of the ideas that are underpin this subject. So you learned the word synastry, natal, progressed horoscope, trine, conjunction, opposition and square. In episode 1 we looked at collision graphs. So these are a new development created specifically for progressed synastry charts. So we introduced what they look like and we showed you some collision graphs. Episode 2 we looked at the history of astrology, or at least some of the history of astrology. We were emphasizing its abandonment by science in 1666. In episode 3 we talked about skeptics. I showed you Gorkolan, the Star Baby scandal. Talked about zodiacs and how they're not really intrinsic to astrology. I looked at the theory of astrology, the fact that there are other subjects that there's a lot of work being done in and a lot of no attention being paid to them at all. In episode 4 we started to look at what it means for you with Sun, Venus and Mars. And in episode 5 looked at life progressions, what it means for you from the point of view of life progressions. We looked at Winston Churchill and a lot of other leaders in that one. In episode 6 I started to show you what the crack in the matrix really looks like. So, useful. So to recap, we only need one coherent theory and one high quality experiment to demonstrate that all the criticisms are negated. All those criticisms in astrology are negated. When we get a theory based on a logical, elegant, repeatable and falsifiable experimental outcomes with robust controls, showing that astrology is valid, and which explains why we didn't understand the subject for so long, the whole edifice of criticism and doubt falls around the ears of the critics of astrology. We have the experiment, the theory and the explanation. We have the Rosetta Stone that enables us to interpret astrology. We also have some very interesting stories about how the counter-advocates, the skeptics, what they've done to hide the results and the implications of the results. This kind of news travels slowly, so you don't know about it yet. So if you get all your information from Wikipedia's astrology and science page, you are hardly likely to find this easy to take. I can assure you I understand, but I do not sympathise. The people responsible for communicating the message about science and astrology are not the same people who are responsible for reviewing the experiments. There is a disconnect between the experimenters, the reviewers and the communicators. There's also a bit of passivity about other astrological researchers. Either they're not getting the same results as I am, or they can't envisage the architecture of the subject after it's proven. I get the impression that astrologers are waiting for the whole subject to be vindicated. They either want it to be entirely vindicated all at once, or they don't really want it to be a science. There are implications involved in vindicating part of it, especially if it contradicts another part of it. If you're comfortable with materialist and rationalist explanations of the universe, you're probably uncomfortable with what I'm saying, and you may believe I am either mistaken or hoaxing. But there is another explanation that you should consider before deciding. I've paid a great deal of attention to this subject, and I am not getting paid. So let's recap some other bits of information. Zodiac signs are not important to astrology. I use them in the same way space scientists use them, to find where planets are and to measure the angles between planets. Astrology appears to be related to events in consciousness but not events in nature, so it doesn't compete with natural science, particularly physics. So invoking a physics explanation to reject astrology is mistaken. Horoscopes don't end at the moment you're born, they keep going for days, weeks and months. We have misperceived what astrology is, and this misperception was quite difficult to understand. And the reason for it is complex. 17th century science could not cope with its complexity. It was rejected in the 17th century, so all the decisions made to turn it into a pseudoscience were made in the 1600s by a French politician. As soon as we start to look at it from this new perspective, it starts to deliver coherent and significant results.
It's still in the game. Somebody's pulling your chain. About 22nd century science.